Hi, everybody. It's Joe Chaffee on this Sunday night as we go into Thanksgiving week. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I did take yesterday off, although I did do a Patreon chat last night for my Patreon members at 10 o'clock. It was a small but very um, relatively private group, but it was nice. Not that the big the big crowds aren't good too, but it's also nice to just have a couple of people to uh, have a conversation. So this way, everybody gets their gets their statements on the table and gets responded to. We always try our best on the live streams to get to everybody, and we've got a nice crowd joining tonight. I see the sun. Like I have the Saints Eagles game, and the Saints are absolutely killing the Eagles, and the Giants won today, which is a good thing. So now they're 2-8. Right? 2-8. So I guess so. Or 2-7. Which one is it? Um, anyway, all right. So we've got the week ahead to look forward to, which is going to be storm free through Friday. Although we do have a couple of weak systems that we're going to be dealing with. There is one coming. There's one that's going to be moving through the east Monday night and Tuesday. And then we have some possibilities for next weekend. Some of you caught me yesterday. I did post it on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter. I made a Thanksgiving turkey. I'm working this week, including on Thanksgiving Day. I actually have a wedding on Wednesday night, believe it or not. So I guess on Thursday I'm not going to be in too much of a mood to eat anyhow. But I decided that since I had the weekend off and it was going to be a quiet weekend, I got myself a small 11-pound turkey, wrapped it in bacon, cooked it yesterday in the oven, made a cornbread and sausage stuffing, some yellow squash, and some sweet potatoes, and I was good. Okay, and I had some home baked chocolate chip cookies to top it off. So think ahead to a good Thanksgiving, and please do get to wherever your destination safely. And if you're hosting Thanksgiving, we will of course hope that your guests arrive with no serious difficulties. Weather's not going to really be producing too many problems this week across the United States, especially come Wednesday. So the big travel day. So that's a good thing. Uh, Thankfully, we're not having what we had Thursday, a repeat of Thursday storm, to really uh, just knock it out with regards to uh, the the, um, the disaster that was the rush hour on Wednesday. So that's a good thing. All right, so let's roll along and get going here. So fasten your seatbelts, everybody. We are going to take a look at the evening surface map, which shows, not too much really is going on at the moment this evening. It's a fairly quiet night across much of the U.S. We do have a little bit of snow going on that's on the radar, and we'll get to that in a second. But right now on the surface map, we really just kind of have weak features here. By the way, I mentioned this already, so if you're on tonight, haven't been on for a bit. This is an interactive surface map that I found on the Weather Prediction Center's website. I really, really like it, and we really ought to look at the actual surface conditions and the surface plots since they are so important to the forecast and making your forecast. We've got a weak low that's sitting in southeast Ohio. There's a very weak frontal boundary that has been falling apart. We had a cold front up into western New York last night, and you can't even find it anymore. So this is a weak system, and to the north and west of that, we have this stripe of snow on the radar, and probably even a few rain showers in some of the warmer air that's running across parts of the northern Ohio Valley and up into western New York State. Meanwhile, you go out into the Great Lakes and Plains, it's pretty cold. You got temperatures that are in the 20s, and you run up to the north, right along the just into northwestern Minnesota and northern North Dakota, where you see these wind shifts that have occurred to the northeast, while the winds to the south are to the south. to the south of the front are coming up from the south. That's where the Arctic boundary is right now, and there's your very cold air that's on up in Canada, that's dropping southward. And of course, we're going to get the Arctic boundary to move through here in the east on Wednesday. That will bring down the very cold air. You'll notice, by the way, as we move down into the southeast and in Florida, we don't have any kind of surface low developing in the southeast or off the Florida Panhandle or in the eastern Gulf like we had with last week's system. There's some big differences between the system that's coming into the east right now and the one that we saw from last week. If you remember the radar last week, it was just absolutely loaded on Wednesday night. It was just solid coverage throughout all the southeastern states and into the lower Ohio Valley. Obviously, that's not the case tonight. You've got that stripe of snow that is running from northeast Ohio through northwest Pennsylvania, on through upstate New York, north of the Pennsylvania line, and some precip aloft that's on the eastern edge of that going into central New England. Much of what's falling here is on the light side. We've got a little bit of precip down in southeastern Missouri and also down along the Texas coast. A little bit of scattered shower activity off the Carolinas, but nothing really to write home about. And a little bit of scattered activity that's sitting off the Florida Keys. We also have some snow back up into parts of North Dakota near that Arctic boundary as it moves to the southeast. And of course, out in the west, it's quiet from Seattle to San Diego, the whole west coast on the quiet side as they still deal with those fires and they're still waiting for at least enough of a change in the pattern to start bringing in some wet weather. Now, the big story this week, really for the east and into the northern mid-Atlantic states, will be the cold. And I'm going to try to make this a bit bigger here. Let's see if I can just bring the zoom out a little bigger so you can at least see the numbers. They're a little bit tough to see. I'll make it. Let me get a little tighter. Bring it up. There we go. That probably, now you can make out the numbers at least. But these are Wednesday's highs, okay? So, and a lot of these highs might be left over from midnight Tuesday night, depending on where you're located. But you've got 50s down through the Carolinas and into Georgia, and then you start to go up to the north, and you're looking at 40s and 30s, near 40 in New York City, 30s to the north and west. And of course, this is the Arctic boundary hasn't really pushed on through yet. Back up into the upper Great Lakes, you got temperatures there in the in the upper 20s. More of this cold air is going to come into the east and less of it into the Great Lakes. The final shot that'll be for Wednesday, Thursday into Friday, and by Thursday morning, we'll go to the low temperatures here. These are the lows Tuesday night, which will be in the upper 20s and low 30s. So temperatures during the day Wednesday really don't get very far at all. And then by Thursday morning, you're looking at lows down in the single digits throughout a good chunk of upstate New York and into central and northern New England. Single digits to low teens. Boston 15 by Thanksgiving morning, 15 at Rhode Island, 11 at Hartford, Poughkeepsie 15. It's 21 in New York City. I think that's probably would be Central Park. 25 at Kennedy. 22 for Riverhead. And then you move south from there, and you're looking at low 20s in southeastern Pennsylvania. 24 in Philadelphia. 22 in Harrisburg. Down to Washington, D.C., Baltimore, you're looking at temperatures in the middle 20s. Low 30s getting down into the Carolinas, low and middle 30s down into Georgia, and you've got 40s down in through northern Florida. So this is a pretty good cold shot. The coldest of the cold air again is going to be coming into the Northeast, and Thanksgiving Day itself is shaping up to be, at least for New York City, it is going to probably wind up being the coldest Thanksgiving Day since 2002, where the high was only 35 and the low was 24. So this may actually wind up being colder than that. In fact, these are the highs now, which have come down over the last couple of days. These are the forecast highs, not out of the 20s in New York City. Remember, the average high this time of year is still up at 50. That's 20 degrees below average. So this is a big, big departure in terms of the average temperature. You don't see 20-degree departures. So you're talking about a cold. This is a cold pattern we've been in, no question. 29 for a high in New York City. Boston only to 24. Albany's high, 24 there. But I don't know what the station is. That's the 19. That's in southern Vermont. So that might be Burlington for the 19. Rochester 23, Buffalo 24. You go down further to the south and you're looking at temperatures in the upper 20s and low 30s. I'm wondering if this, I haven't really given it a good look, but with that Arctic boundary coming down, I'm wondering if there's going to be a decent lake effect event on Wednesday up in parts of upstate New York. We'll give it a look when we get to the maps. And Washington, D.C. highs barely above freezing, a high of only 34. And then you've got 40s and 50s, and then you get into the low 60s once you get down into southern Georgia. So a chilly day in the southeastern part of the U.S. And on Friday, the big shopping day, it's the temperatures are going to start to moderate a bit, but the lows in the morning are still going to be very cold. 20 in New York City, 25, I guess that's Kennedy there. Philadelphia, 21. Again, these are Friday morning lows. Washington, 23. Single digits in northeastern Pennsylvania. 12 at Poughkeepsie, 10 at Albany, 7 in Burlington, 14 in Boston. The core of the cold air is in on Thanksgiving Day and then starts to pull out, and then temperatures will moderate. We can just to see where they go, because this air mass does pull out, and by Saturday, it's back up to 50. So it's going to feel really good if these numbers verify. 50 in Washington, 50 in Philadelphia, 50 in New York City, and back up at least to 41 in Boston, upper 30s in upstate New York, lower 30s as you head up into northern New England. Now, with regards to the snowfall, these are the Weather Service's snowfall forecasts. It's hard for me to kind of, I have to sort of rely on them because they know their areas far better than I do. So these are the snow amounts through Thursday, 7 p.m. I'm sorry, through Wednesday, 7 p.m. And this is going to, of course, include this stripe of snow that we're getting tonight from this weakening lead system. And then Monday night into Tuesday, as that frontal boundary parks itself very close to New York City, you're going to have a wave develop on that front, and that is going to probably produce a band of snow to the north of that. And most of the heavier amounts are indicated for the Catskills, the Hudson Valley, probably from Dutchess County and Ulster County northward, on into western Massachusetts and into southern Vermont and New Hampshire. We're talking basically about what looks like a 1 to 3, 2 to 4 inch event. Not seeing any big amounts being generated by the forecast, at least back up into lake effect country, although you see the darker blues are showing up, so they're obviously not pinpointing the local microclimate impacts of all of this. So this is the snow for the first half of this week, and we'll go over to why don't you just take a look at we'll take a look at the Great Lakes. The Upper Peninsula they're going to get some lake effect action in the coming days. But that is pretty much it as far as snow is concerned in the United States. You're looking at a small area up in parts of Montana, the Dakotas, into northeast Minnesota, and then a little bit of patchy area down in the west from whatever happens later in the week, with weather systems eventually trying to move onshore. So at this point, let's look at the weather pattern going forward. TropicalTidbits.com is the maps that we use, and we think that should be your go-to source if you want to look at weather maps and weather models. Has been doing some server maintenance, but he's gradually getting some of the maps back working. The GFS is now back up through the late afternoon model run. I have it set here on the first map. This was from Thursday, which of course you had that vigorous upper low that held together enough so that we got that solid shot of snow that lifted out, and now we wait for this trough in Canada to drop down. You'll notice that the trough itself, by tomorrow morning, it's not very sharp. It's got this kind of very broad bowlish look to it when it swings across the Mississippi Valley and into the Ohio Valley and into the east. Kind of this gentle going flow that goes from northwest to west and then to southwest when you go to the east side of the axis of the trough. So this is not the sharpest trough in the world, and there's not a whole lot of upper air energy. We don't have a system in the southern stream that's getting involved, and that's keeping this weather system for Monday night, Tuesday on the weak side. The trough does sharpen up a little bit as it nears the coast on Tuesday, but by that time, the wave is moving away. It might strengthen as it heads towards southeastern New England and beyond, but it will be too late for areas west of there to really catch any kind of real intensification out of this. Meanwhile, out off the west coast, you've got troughing there that's approaching. It looks like a system that comes in near San Diego, a weakening upper air trough there, and then a stronger trough that approaches. In the east, you've got a second arm. If you look over Hudson Bay, there is, you could probably put an upper low in there that swings around. That's what brings down the really cold air. There's a second shortwave trough in the northern stream that swings around and moves through. That brings down the very cold air here for later Wednesday, Thursday, into Friday. And then that trough is going to try and lift out and actually has some success to it. You get the upper low, goes just east of Newfoundland, pretty wrapped up system there. And a little bit of a ridge pops up here in the east on Friday. That sets up the next system for next weekend. So this energy that's coming into the west, this is going to be the weather maker for next weekend. And the models have some differences here because the GFS, if you'll notice, the southern part of this kind of gets separated a bit. You got energy out in the northern stream. There's a lead shortwave on the GFS that comes out and really kind of gets kicked away to the northeast. And in fact, it waits for this second energy coming into the Pacific Northwest. You see it there Friday afternoon. That gets drives southeastward, and then that somewhat phases with that northern stream energy. That's where the GFS brings something in for more along the lines of Sunday night, Monday, as opposed to say Saturday night and Sunday. And the trough in the east sits there and strengthens as we go into the longer range. And this is coming up to around November 30th. Remember, we've been talking about the fact that might be a date that the last couple of days of the month might be one to watch. Look at what happens in the west through all of this. We'll go back now. This is for this is Friday night actually. Watch the Pacific Northwest and northward into Canada. That ridge, once all that energy gets back east of the Rockies, the ridge has to pop back up, and that's what it does. It starts to really strengthen. You get troughing from the Aleutians southeastward in the Pacific. That forces that ridge to drive northward. And then in the east, in response, you get this deep trough that starts to swing to the coast. And this is right around November 29th. So the models have been signaling this for the last number of days when we were looking at the teleconnections. And the GFS is certainly playing into that idea with the upper air. In terms of the specifics with regards to what this is going to look like on the surface, we have to reserve judgment for a while yet, because we still don't, we're still not sure of the exact nature of the ridge in the west and the trough of the east and where is it all going to line up. But when you look at this, you got to leave a bit impressed by what the GFS is doing. Blocking is a signature that's popping up, and that is going to be with us into the beginning of December. So you look at this in its long range, that's a pretty blocky look that it has with an upper low sitting out at 50 and 50. That you've got to watch that also, if this winds up happening. This is a definite blocky signature, and there's a potential here, maybe even into the end of the first week of December, that we could wind up seeing another weather event. So the pattern is the pattern, in my view, in my opinion, is just basically, we're doing a little bit of rearranging chess pieces this week to some degree to set it up for the last week of November and the first week of December. And it looks to me like we're going to have stuff to talk about going forward. How cold it's going to be is going to be is going to be a huge question because we're going to have to see how much Canadian cold air is going to be able to get involved as we go into the long range period next week and beyond. But let's back it up here with respect to the short term. Okay, so you got the weak system there, high sitting just to the west of Nova Scotia. The high is, if you remember back to last week, we had the big high. In fact, we can bring it up. Why don't we go back to last week? I'll bring up the surface map again to Thursday so we can remind ourselves of what it looked like. And we'll go to that last Wednesday. This is as the high was building in. You had this big, the big cold high over Lake Superior. We were starting to see that cold air coming into the east, and it was Wednesday night, if you remember, that it got very cold. That high on Thursday, when we go to Thursday morning, sitting in northern Vermont. Okay, remember you had the ridge building down the coast, east of the cold air damming east of the Appalachians, and there's your surface low that was off the South Carolina coast Monday morning. And as the snow got underway Monday afternoon, that surface high was sitting just off the Maine coast. Cold air just wedged in. We don't have that this time around. We don't have the high holding. The high to the north is moving out. The air with it is not really all that cold, and it's moving away to the northeast. And you get this frontal boundary. The initial frontal boundary just kind of stalls out. And here's your second wave that develops in northern Virginia tomorrow night. And with it, there'll be an area of snow on the northern fringe of it. The low is already by Tuesday morning, so any rain that occurs near the coast will be over with. I think that north of Route 84 in upstate New York, northeasternmost Pennsylvania, upstate New York, into northern Connecticut, and of course into Massachusetts, most of Massachusetts, and northward, there you folks are going to see a little bit of snow out of this. And that low, you'll see how it's just kind of a flat little wave there. The pressure really doesn't start dropping until it gets to near Cape Cod, and then it begins to intensify as it moves towards Nova Scotia, which by Wednesday, Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, getting some snow over in Nova Scotia. And here is the next this low that's in the Great Lakes. This has the Arctic air. Okay, this is the Arctic air that's going to come in for Wednesday and Wednesday night. That low, it moves rapidly into northwestern New York State. You've got the trailing cold front that runs from there westward to north of Chicago. You see where all the blue lines are tightly packed? That's where your cold advection is occurring. And that drops in pretty much east of 80 degrees west. So the core of the cold air, New England down into New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And some of that cold air, of course, bleeds southward, especially at the low levels of the atmosphere. It's also going to probably be pretty breezy here Wednesday into Wednesday night. And even into Thursday with that high to the north, the gradient is going to be somewhat tight. So I know they have issues with the Thanksgiving Day parade in New York City when the winds are over 15, 20 miles an hour, and they may very well be at least come parade time. Meanwhile, out in the west, as we move through this week, you got that weakening system that comes in to Southern California. It doesn't do much with that. But then we have something stronger that comes in Wednesday night and Thursday, particularly in central and northern California, getting a good dose of snow there and on up into the Pacific Northwest, and an even stronger system that comes into the Northwest on Friday. So that is the energy that the model's having trouble with. You've got this lead energy that comes in, and this is what the GFS did with this. It starts to uh, bring some rain eastward. Look where the high goes, by the way. That next the cold surface high with the Arctic air by Saturday morning is well east of New Jersey. That is not a place where you want a high to go to if you're going to have to deal with um, sleet and freezing rain. So that's why I think temperatures are going to moderate fairly quickly. And it brings an area of rain here with low pressure that develops. This almost looks more like this really is more of a warm front than anything else that is moving across the upper Midwest. So you got a surface low that develops off the North Carolina coast that the model just kind of takes east. This is where the European and the GFS differ, because the European actually lifts that coastal low northward up the East Coast for Saturday night into Sunday. The GFS instead waits for the second energy behind it, and it's with that that it takes a low east, and this is more for Monday and Monday night with that low lifting up to the northeast. So you've got two different solutions here with regards to the long range. And then, of course, we talked about that next round of energy behind it with that trough in the east. The GFS makes a storm well to the east of New Jersey, but I will just say that the GFS typically likes to do that in its long range, where it tends to be a little bit suppressed and a little bit too far to the east. So don't be too surprised if you start seeing models over the next couple of days come back further west with this system. And this is, again, where we had that teleconnection telegraphing this for the end of the month. So certainly, I think it's going to be a rather exciting pattern for weather folks going forward and watching all this. I'm going to bring up the teleconnections, and I'm assuming, where are you guys? Hold on. The teleconnection site has stopped. Just trying to get you guys the updated chat here. Hang on a second. So bear with me. Let's see if for some reason the teleconnection site is not loading. Did it just go down? Figures. I should have brought the map up beforehand. By the way, when Tropical Tidbits is not working, I'll put this up also as a link for you guys to use. So hang on one second here. And it is down. Okay, thanks. Thank you. Thanks, David. I appreciate it. They were up this morning. I did get to see it. Very strong PNA, Pacific North America Index, and the NAO negative. So all the signals on today's teleconnections were still there. You're just going to have to trust me. The link I just put up there, that is, if you need to get to maps, you can always go to the Weather Services site, which I now have just lost. Where is it? Here we go. This is their site, and it's a little harder to use. You have to kind of play around with it a little bit, and the view that you get to see is really all of North America. So what I had to do is just kind of zoom in. This is the map that I'm showing up right now. This is for tomorrow morning, the 700 millibar flow. So we're talking up at about the 11 or 12,000 feet. And the coloring here shows you the relative humidity. So this is a good place. You know, when you look at the relative humidity, usually for the way I look at it is 90%, which is the dark green, is where you probably have some kind of precipitation going on. Not always, though. And the 70% at least is a solid overcast. Sometimes in cold and snow situations, especially when you're dealing with moisture coming into a very dry, cold air mass, the 70% might wind up being the leading edge of light snow, and the darker green might be more representative of heavy snow falling. So you see how it keeps us pretty much in clouds all day, and then you get that trough. You can see that trough that's swinging around for Monday night and Tuesday. Not all that sharp. By Tuesday morning, it's already dried out in New Jersey and Long Island, but you do have some moisture going on in upstate New York and up into New England, and then that trough pulls away, and then of course you get that shot of cold air that comes in for Wednesday night and Thursday. So this is kind of the raw version of Tropical Tidbits, that where he takes the data and then makes it very much user-friendly and much easier to understand. This is a little bit more technical in nature, so you're kind of seeing the GFS in the raw, to put it for the lack of a better phrase. So, the other thing here is this is the National Weather Service's snow forecast map that they put out tonight for going through the 20th, 7 p.m. Whenever you go to these local weather offices, by the way, be sure you always check the timestamp, because sometimes if it's a long duration event, you might not be getting the entire forecast for an entire snow event. Or sometimes what happens is, let's say snow is due within 72 hours, but not till say 60 to 72 hours, just that last, somewhere inside that last 12-hour period where snow is about to begin, and it's going to be potentially a big event. And you look at a map and you'll see just small numbers on it, and you'll look at it. If you don't check the timestamp, you might believe that, oh, they're saying, some people are saying a big snowstorm, but we're only getting an inch. Well, check the timestamp, because they may only be forecasting for perhaps the first couple of hours of the snow event, and then it goes outside the time criteria, because these maps usually don't get done until a storm is inside 72 hours. And I can bring up Albany. You can find these, by the way. I have them on my website under snow forecast. What I've done is I've taken all these snowfall maps from the various National Weather Service offices and put them all on one page, so that you can scroll through all the offices from Virginia on up into northern New England, and through upstate New York, and through central and western Pennsylvania. So they're all in one place, rather than having to jump to each National Weather Service site. Here's Albany's picture for, again, the timestamp here is through 7 o'clock tomorrow night. Okay, so this is not counting what is going to happen. This is a perfect example of why you got to check the timestamp, because this is only through 7 o'clock tomorrow night. If you remember back from the map I showed you before, we had higher numbers here, and that's because that map went into Wednesday, so that covered the entire second event. So they're basically saying about an inch or two into tomorrow evening, and we can pull up. I'll think it's BOX, unless they changed it. Let's see what Boston is doing. Yep. So here's Boston's view. Now this map goes to 7 o'clock on Tuesday. So this covers the whole thing. And they're forecasting 1 to 2 inches north of 84 in northern Connecticut, 2 to 3 inches at Worcester, 3 to 4 in Amherst, Greenfield at 3 to 4, Fitchburg 4 to 6, 1 to 2 in Bedford, 2 to 3 in Lawrence, and 1 to 2 in Newburyport, less than an inch in Boston, less than an inch in Foxborough, less than an inch in Putnam and Willimantic in Connecticut, and nothing once you get south of Route 84. So this is mostly an inland event. If the cold air were only more important, then we would be talking some different numbers here, obviously, with respect to tomorrow, and for tomorrow night into Tuesday morning for my neck of the woods. But the cold air, it's just not there, folks. So it won't be happening. And the cold this week is going to be a little bit tough to take, because it is going to be it's really going to be shocking, actually, to see those temperatures down where they're indicated, plus the fact that you're going to have wind to go along with it. By the way, in a lot of areas, all my snowfall, which I got 5 inches on Thursday, is long gone. Okay, that was by Friday morning. Almost all of it was gone outside my door, and I suspect that when I drive up into Westchester tomorrow, that the snow cover there is just about gone. Melts pretty quick in November if you don't have a very cold air mass to support holding the snow cover right behind the storm system. And we indeed did not have a very cold air mass behind this. It was cold, but was not wintertime cold. It was not temperatures in the 20s. David Allen, welcome tonight, watching from the UK. You're 5 degrees above average, so the only cold you've had was October 27th and 30th, when it fell to 21 Fahrenheit on the 30th with the max of 39. You want me to look at Europe? Okay, let's see if he's got it updated. I think he did. So let me take a look. Let's see what's going on the other side of the world here. I'm going to bring the upper air first. I'm going to do some analysis real fast and see what's happening. Okay. So starting off from this afternoon, uh, Europe and the blocking high that's over Scandinavia. That is so clearly obvious here on the GFS, and you can see it there. That big purple area up at the top there. That is a big upper air high. You have northeast winds in the upper atmosphere coming in from northwest Siberia on over into northern Germany and France and over England with low pressure in the upper atmosphere. So your jet stream is definitely suppressed way to the south, but you've got this warm upper ridge to the north. Over time, that upper low that is over the Mediterranean Sea swings back northwestward. The ridge kind of is still sitting there and gets nudged up. You actually have a system that's probably going to be shown coming up from the southeast, which is pretty odd. I saw as I've been watching over because we don't look. I never looked until in the last year or so when Hurricane Ophelia was around, and I really didn't pay too much day-to-day attention on this, but day-to-day attention on this. But it's amazing to me how these upper air systems move in all different directions over Europe. You do have, it's funny because you've got a vortex that's way out to the east of you, but mostly higher pressures over time. Now, gradually, as you go late in the period, you start to get the jet stream to come down here. Let's see how it translates on the surface. Because I know one of the guys, one of my buddies who lives in England and has good weather knowledge was talking about cold coming in at the beginning of December. Now that you have high pressure at the surface sitting up over over Norway and Sweden, extending eastward there. So you've got all these easterly winds, but not a whole lot of cold air really. And you get some rain here. Here's that system that kind of drives northwestward. It doesn't really show up too well at the surface. Low just sort of meanders there south of Ireland and spins around. Then you start to get at least into a more normal flow with systems coming in from off the Atlantic. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of cold air here until late in the long range period. All right, this is where he was kind of focused on when we get toward the beginning of December. This is of course subject to big change, but if this were to verify, you start to get those northerlies down the North Sea and get the cold air coming down from the Arctic regions. This is what I suspect that my friend that is he's in England and he knows the weather patterns for Europe and for the UK a lot better than I do. He was talking about this for the beginning of December, so that seems to be where the models are going. We can look at the temperature anomalies too. Oh, look at this. So late in the period, this is all below average, but let's see where we're starting out. Near or a little below average. Look at back through Siberia. It's all above average through much of Siberia and on up into northwestern Europe because of that upper high. Colder than average as you go into Eastern Europe and into southern England by the end of the week. And it kind of just vacillates back and forth, but you do have, at least a little bit, some waves of where the air is a bit colder than normal. Southern Europe in the long range gets warm for a bit right here. This is day 11, 12, and 13. But now here comes that cold up from the north. So this is where perhaps when he was looking at the long range, as you get toward the very beginning of December, you start to see that cold air sweeping down from the north with much below average temperatures being indicated here in northwestern Europe, up in Norway and Sweden, and up into northern Scotland and northern England. If this were to verify, and the above normal shifts down to Italy and points eastward to Austria, Hungary, Romania, and Greece. You know, I don't watch every day. I should make it a point to make sure I take a look at it at least once a day so I get a sense of continuity, David. So I will try and remember to do that going forward. And let your friends know that Chaffee does cover Europe from time to time. And if uh, if you're on here, I'd be more than happy to take a look for you. Why is it important? Michael Zimmerman, why is this important? The 2002-3 analog match is almost perfect for our current pattern and looks to remain that way going forward, at least through December. That actually kind of jumped into my mind, if only because of the fact, Michael, that this is the cold, Thanksgiving is going to wind up being the coldest since 2002. You know what we can do? Hang on. Why don't we go back and look at Thanksgiving of 2002? Let's pull the map. I got the surface maps should be up there. We can pull it down and see what's going on. So let's do that. So hang on one second. Let me bring the window back up, and we could take a look. Having this tool is very useful, to say the least. So bring the map up forward. Okay, so let's take a look. By the way, as I remember 2002, 2003, that was actually one of my favorite winters. I think that was for me, that was the Suffolk County, what I call the Suffolk County winter. I think that if that was the winter, I got 78 inches of snow. It was the second snowiest winter out here. And it was a winter where the back edge of almost every system was at the New York City Nassau line, and the back edge of heavy snow was always at the Suffolk line. And we had storm after storm out here where it impacted areas from Suffolk County and central Connecticut eastward. If you were west of there, you had about half as much as everybody else. So let's go to 2002. And I'm thinking that Thanksgiving that year was it's usually the fourth Thursday, so it was the 28th. So why don't we go back to the 21st? Well, that's a nice looking map. Okay, so why don't we? I'll run this through. I'll add a day. So now we are at. So this is Friday. I'll put the date up here. So this is Friday, November 22nd, 2002. The Saturday. Now look, if you look on the Sunday here, I mean, you do have very cold air coming into the northern plains. You've got temperatures in the teens. You got teens and single digits up in Canada. Monday, low in the east. I'm just kind of looking as close as I can to the numbers. That front goes by. Here's Tuesday. Here's Wednesday. Now you got some cold. Look at these temperatures up here. 20, 29, 21st. Okay, so this is Wednesday night. So let's go to Thursday morning. Yeah, look at these numbers here, folks. And you go, this is Thursday morning, Thanksgiving Day in 2002. A very, very cold morning in the Northeast. The temperatures in the teens to low 20s. You had teens down into Virginia. You had 20s all the way. Look at the 20s going all the way down into northern Florida and the Florida Panhandle. So that high actually dropped pretty far to the south, down into Arkansas. So it's a little different than what this cold air and this cold high is doing. The cold push on that Thanksgiving was much more widespread, and rather where the core of most of this cold air is going to be coming in to the east and down into the mid-Atlantic states, and not so much as you go back over toward the Great Lakes and into the Ohio Valley. Very interesting. We can always look back at this stuff now, so that comes in handy. So it's nothing in weather ever is exactly the same. And there certainly in 2002 was not a big snow event ahead of this plunge of cold air. But as I've said, no trend that repeats exactly, but sometimes they do tend to rhyme. And I've heard a number of people who are into analogs. I'm not really into analogs very much. To to be upfront about it. It would require an awful lot of time and research, which I'm not willing to do. Okay, so I let somebody else do it, and I'll just kind of rely on them. Being very honest, it's a very it's a long, tedious process when you're going through analogs. I also don't particularly care to use analogs as a tool for forecasting in the short range. I know some people do, but I'm not big on doing that. I think that kind of leads you down that can lead you down the wrong road if you're not careful. That's not to say they're not useful. I think they're useful, but I'm just not really big on using them as specific forecast tools. Timothy Veltman, you were talking about Thanksgiving, and going on to Christmas. Describing what year was that you were describing there? You said there were we had 5 inch an hour snows on Christmas, 10 inches in 2 hours, two 24-inch snowstorms in 10 days. What year was that, Timothy? Because I didn't. Oh, 2002, 2003. Okay, so I'm talking about December 2002. Okay, got you. Finger Lakes has generated some snow squalls in some cases. Iron Mine, Long Island Sound every once in a while can generate some snow squalls, and I've seen that happen when we've gotten really true Arctic air, and in deep deeper into the winter, deeper into December and January, when you get one of these really cold shots of bitter air that come in, and they move over the warm waters of Long Island Sound, and there's a north wind, almost a straight north wind. I've seen snow showers and squalls come in from the Sound here where I am. Yeah, the long range people is really, they're very big on the analogs, and I understand that. Again, I'm not saying they're not useful. I think they're quite useful from that respect. I just don't know that they're valuable as forecast tools uh, when you're looking for specifics. They can give you kind of a general broad brush as to what to look for. But I think there's an assumption when you look at, when you talk about analogs, to say that it was like, this is what happened. This is how it happened in 2002, 2003. So it's going to happen the same way. And I would just say there will be some similarities perhaps, but there probably will also be some notable differences that won't make it look exactly like 2002, 2003. And I would venture to say that you probably won't have the timing come out in the same way, although it is rather odd that you've got that's an analog that a lot of people are pointing to, and we're experiencing some very cold air right around the same time. So, interesting. What does WPC call for the next 10 days as far as rainfall totals? Okay, 1 second. We've got that map up here in the lower corner, so that's an easy pickup. And WPC is probably leaning more toward the Europeans' idea. So this takes us through next Sunday, showing up to two to maybe 3 inch rain amounts from the Western Carolinas on up into Pennsylvania. So I'm thinking, and also you see the heavier rain just along the Carolina coast and offshore. So I'm thinking that the WPC, I haven't read their discussion, but I'm thinking they probably lean toward the Europeans' idea uh, rather than the GFS's. By the way, notice in California and central and northern California, but even down into southern California, they're forecast to pick up at least a half an inch of rain over the next half an inch to you got these stripes of an inch plus along the Southern California coast, and then you get into some really big amounts, 4 or 5 inch amounts up from central and northern California on northward up into the Pacific Northwest. So the West at least is opening up and starting to send energy in. Oh, Danny, you want me to look at Australia again, Danny Davis? Yeah, I will. I'll look, but I got to tell you, I'm not. I told you, I said yesterday, I'm not well versed in that and how weather works down there. If I don't pay that much attention to Europe, which at least every once in a while our weather systems go there. Ours never go to where you are. But hang on 1 second, I'll be more than happy to take a look. So let's see. Actually, probably would be pretty useful. I could at least bring up the temperature anomalies. Those at least will help you to some degree. And I'm guessing you can see. You know, it's funny. I've had people tell me, not all websites are visible in all parts of the world. Some are not. I'm assuming you give tropicaltidbits.com a try, and there's Australia. So there's the temperature profile here. You guys are going into your summer soon. Summer weather lovers here are going to be jealous. So right now, your profile, this is this afternoon, showing, except for the East Coast, the Southeast Coast, the Northwest Coast, a little bit below normal, large area of above average temperatures. And then going forward into Tuesday, it looks like the southwestern part of Australia all well below normal. In fact, more of Australia is below normal than above. I'm wondering, you look at the way the temperature profile here is of the anomaly. There's probably some kind of low that's offshore, just judging by the swirl. Below average temperatures into Wednesday, Thursday. You got some cooler than average temperatures here for late November going on into this week. And then in the longer range, looks like the northern half of Australia over the weekend warms up a little. Just going forward now, we're into the middle of next week. And then a bit more of a genuine warm up going on. Still kind of below. The southern half of Australia looks pretty chilly. And now we're deep into the long range. Just want to see, just for laughs, let's take a look at the surface. It's all very interesting to see this. Oh, okay. So look, there's some kind of low here that moved. There it is, as it moves northeastward. How deep is that? 990-ish. And storm that's off the southeast coast there that moves away. Here comes another one that looks like it's well to your south. So you're getting these storm systems that are to your south that are starting to stay to your south, glancing into parts of southeastern Australia. The rest of it, you got that, I guess that's some kind of thermal low that eventually forms there in the central part of Australia that generates your summer heat. I got a lot to learn, okay? I got a lot to learn to familiarize myself with how the meteorology works for you in Australia. So, but more than happy to take a look. Don't ever hesitate to ask. Odd to see the lows clockwise. Yeah, it is a little bit weird. What do I think of the general weather will be like in the Northeast for the last week of November? 5,000 subscribers with no videos. Why do I think that you're from Suffolk County? I could swear you said you were from Suffolk County. But since you're asking for you're from the Northern Bronx. I'm kind of curious, where in the Northern Bronx are you from? Your weather's going to be just pretty much what I described in the long range. So you've got rain for late in the weekend, early next week, depending on which model you use, or Saturday night into Sunday, and then we've got two possible storm threats later next week. But where in the North Bronx are you from? I'd be curious. Yeah, fun. One of these, it's on my list of places to go. Judah Cohen said, pay attention to an active East Coast storm track this winter. Well, I mean, look, we've had the snow cover growth in North America was a record high last year, and that record apparently was taken out this year. So we have record snow cover in North America. If you want to use the argument that early snow cover growth in North America plays into early arrivals of colder air, which kind of, when you think about it, makes perfect sense. Well, guess what? It certainly worked out this way for this month for the Northeast and for a good chunk of the Mid-Atlantic states. We kind of went into this pattern, if you think about it, back in the middle of October. And the snow cover growth in Canada was actually pretty strong going back into late September when it was showing up. I haven't had a chance to get, Judah's been pretty busy, I've noticed, and I haven't had a chance to contact him. I've seen that he's been on in a few other places. So once things calm down, I'll reach out to him and see if he wants to come on again. Northern Bronx is usually 5 degrees colder than the city. Oh, absolutely, especially in Riverdale, Iron Mine. Riverdale in the Northwest Bronx is very hilly. There's a lot of elevation there. People who live in Yonkers, just north of Riverdale, they kind of describe Yonkers as being the San Francisco of the East because of how hilly it is. But yeah, there have been some instances where the northern part of the Bronx has gotten hit pretty hard with snow while it's raining just a handful of miles to the south, where it's a whole lot flatter. I actually bundles where Deutschland. Which winter outlook do you think is right, NOAA or the Weather Channel? They are both different for Texas and cold air. I'd rather want it cold. You know what? I don't think I look like the thing with NOAA's long range outlook is they are very heavily based on the El Nino, and they kind of look at whether the whole El Nino thing, and that is a large chunk of their forecast. And I'm not a long range guy. It just seems to me that there's so many, there are other factors that you have to consider. As far as the Weather Channel is concerned, I don't watch them. I haven't watched the Weather Channel, my God, in probably about 15 years or more. Unless somebody accidentally has the Weather Channel on, I don't watch. And I also don't watch any of the other local TV people, if only because I think that for anyone who's in this who's in the game of forecasting, it's probably a smart thing not to watch those your colleagues, your professional colleagues, because you don't want to be biased. That said, I think they're probably just a general statement. The NOAA long range I have seen, the weather channels I have not. There's probably elements of the NOAA forecast that makes sense, but I would just I would pay closer attention to what's going on in front of you in the short term. I don't know that you could really derive too much going forward. There's just too much variability. I mean, at least for the East in my area last year, where we had this really huge swing from being well below normal and in some areas record cold, endless record cold, to way above normal and what seemed like endless record highs, to another extreme at the end of the winter where we went into that big blocking pattern and wound up with 4 nor'easters in about 3 weeks' time. I think there's just too much variability over a 3 to 4 month time to come out with one general forecast. The El Nino would probably favor Texas being below average in terms of temperatures. And you know what? With the delivery of cold air coming down out of Canada, the way it's been, uh, don't be too shocked if you wind up with one of these air masses coming pretty far south and producing some snows. Certainly, we've seen that already in northwest and parts of West Texas, and I'm betting that you'll probably see it maybe even over in East Texas as well. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up. You know why? Because it's coming up on a whole hour, and this was a long one. So let me leave you with this. If you are really weather geeky, okay, then I think you probably would really love my weather platform, and it's on my Patreon page, and I've just put the link up on the chat. That is a subscription platform. It's just $2 a month, and you can participate in the Patreon live stream only with the Patriots. Okay, not the New England Patriots, but my Patreon Patriots, and you can do that not every day, but almost every day. I've been doing a private live stream. We did one last night at 10 o'clock at night, which was cool. Plus, we have all sorts of other posts that we put up that are just for Patreon members. No trolls, no flat earthers. You can direct message me anytime, and Scott Briller will tell you, I usually answer relatively quickly unless I got my hands full doing something or I'm on the road. But I do get back to you in a reasonable amount of time. So consider that. One other way you can support my channel is if you're shopping on Amazon, and if you're doing your Christmas shopping on Amazon, why not just do it through the Joe Stradamus link that I have on my on the description of this video. You get your stuff It doesn't cost you anything extra. Amazon just throws me back a little bit of coin so I can get a couple of cigars out of it. We're a participant in the Amazon Services LLC program, which is an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for us to earn fees by linking to Amazon and its affiliated sites. And one other thing, and this is absolutely free, if you are in the New York, New Jersey, Long Island, Hudson Valley, Southern Connecticut area, specifically Northern New Jersey, my app is out and it is free. Here's the link to that on Google Play. It's right now, I only have it for Android devices, but it is free. So download it there at Google Play, and hopefully this week, or if the holidays slow them down, by next week, Apple will give me its final approval. And if you've got an iPhone, you can go pick it up, get the app for the iPhone. So I'm hoping again it'll be this week sometime, or if not, maybe by the end of the month, Apple will give me the okay. So as soon as that comes out, I will send you the link. All right, folks. So tomorrow, we're normal day tomorrow. We'll probably try to shoot for a Patreon live stream tomorrow morning for the Patreon Patriots at around 9:30 or 10 o'clock Eastern time. And then tomorrow night, we'll do our regular YouTube live stream, and we'll do that probably at 7 o'clock Eastern time. And my colleague Joe Rayo is still out for one more day. I thought he was coming back tomorrow, but he's actually coming back Tuesday. And that's the only day this week that he and I are going to be there together. So Tuesday will be the one day this week that you'll get a Joe and Joe weather show on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee. And that'll be Tuesday at 9:15. All right, folks, have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow.